Not all dangerous mountains are tall or famous. Some, like Mount Thor's 1,250 meters of overhanging face, plunge straight into the Arctic void, sheer, relentless drops where verticality alone becomes deadly. Here, survival hinges on more than altitude. These are the world's steepest giants, and their true risks go far beyond what anyone expects. But what makes a cliff so unforgiving that only a handful have ever stood atop it? Mount Thor rises from the Arctic wilderness of Baffin Island with a face that seems to defy gravity itself. Its eastern wall plunges for 1,250 meters in a single unbroken drop, so steep that the upper sections lean 15 degrees past vertical. This is not just a cliff. It is the world's largest pure vertical drop, a granite wall that overhangs the valley below, shaped by ancient glaciers and relentless ice. Climbers who attempt Thor's east face must commit to a siege mentality. In 1985, a Canadian team spent 33 days living on the wall, battling storms that pinned them in place for days, rationing food as blizzards swept across their portalages, and improvising repairs when gear froze or snapped in the cold. There is no easy retreat. Once above the lower pitches, escape means either finishing the climb or waiting out the weather, sometimes for a week at a time. The remoteness is absolute. Rescue is days away, and even the approach can take weeks, threading through polar bear country and across glacial rivers. Only a handful have ever stood atop the rim, and even fewer have dared the full, overhanging face. The wall's overhang is not a minor feature. Sections lean out so far that ropes hang free in the air, and any fall means a clean swing into space. In recent years, a few base jumpers have leapt from the summit, vanishing into the Arctic air. But for most, the face is the test of patience and endurance as much as skill. Farther east on the coast of Greenland, Ullamertorsuaq rises above Tasirmiut Fjord like a blade of granite, nearly as tall as Thor, but even more elusive. Its west face offers about 1,100 meters of near-continuous vertical granite, cut through with stacked pillars and narrow ledges rather than one single overhanging sweep. Climbers tackle routes with names like war and poetry, lines that demand elite technical skill, with grades reaching M8 or higher, and sections of sustained 5.13 climbing. The remoteness is even more profound. Helicopters are stationed more than 100 kilometers away, and the fjord's weather can turn in minutes, unleashing katabatic winds and sudden storms that force teams to bivouac in the open. Ullamertorsuaq is rarely photographed and little known outside the tightest circles of big wall climbers. The wall's continuity is broken by buttresses and steps, but the sheer technical challenge, the cold, and the total isolation combine to make it one of the most respected and least repeated vertical climbs on Earth. In these Arctic outposts, verticality is not just a number. It is an environment, a test, and for those who attempt it, a measure of what it means to move through truly unforgiving terrain. Polar Sunspire sits deep in the Canadian Arctic, cut off from any hope of outside help. In 1996, a team of American climbers set out to scale its north face, a wall of nearly 1,000 meters of clean vertical granite. Their route, named the Great and Secret Show, would become a test of human endurance as much as technical skill. The climb stretched into a 39-day ordeal. By the final week, food was running out. Rations dropped to just 500 calories a day, barely enough to function in the cold. The team faced a decision: retreat and abandon their gear or push on and risk starvation. Exhausted, they took a vote. The majority chose to continue, gambling on a narrow window of clear weather. They survived on melted snow and the last scraps of food, finally reaching the top after more than a month on the wall. There was no rescue possible, no easy way down, only the knowledge that every step higher was a commitment with no turning back. The psychological weight of such isolation stands in sharp contrast to the public drama that plays out on Europe's Troll Wall. Rising over 1,700 meters above Norway's Romsdalen Valley, with more than 1,100 meters of sheer, overhanging cliff, Trollveggen is both a magnet for climbers and a visible landmark for thousands who drive the road below. Its loose rock and constant erosion make it unpredictable. In 1965, Norwegian pioneers completed the first ascent, surviving rockfall and storms that pinned them to the wall for days. But as the wall became famous, a new risk appeared: base jumping. By the mid-1980s, a string of fatal jumps and near misses forced Norwegian authorities to act. In 1986, the Norwegian Public Roads Administration, with local officials, banned base jumping from Troll Wall. The reasons were clear: repeated deaths, rockfall threatening tourists, and the high cost of rescues in terrain that offers no margin for error. Today, the ban is enforced with heavy fines, up to 50,000 kroner, and the threat of criminal charges. Troll Wall remains open to climbers willing to accept the risk, but jumpers face not just gravity but the law. On walls like Polar Sunspire, the greatest danger is the silence. No rescue, no witnesses, just the weight of commitment. On cliffs like Troll Wall, the danger is public, the consequences immediate, and the response collective. The line between personal challenge and public risk is thin, and every choice on these faces carries consequences that reach far beyond the climbers themselves. On the north face of the Matterhorn, climbers have been swallowed by storms and avalanches for generations. The wall rises 1,200 meters from the glacier, a sheer plain of ice and rock that has claimed more than 500 lives since the first ascent in 1865. Bodies lost to falls or buried by snow sometimes reappear decades later, preserved in the ice. The mountain's reputation is built not just on its beauty, but on the tally of those who never came back. In the early years, rescue meant a desperate search on foot, and the line between adventure and disaster was razor thin. Helicopter extractions only became possible after the 1950s, but by then, the mountain's fatal legacy was well established. Across the Alps, the Eiger's north face casts a longer, darker shadow. Known as the Murder Wall, it rises 1,800 meters, taller than any other north face in the range. In the 1930s, teams spent days trapped on tiny ledges, battered by falling ice and rock. The first successful ascent in 1938 took 4 men 4 days, but more than 65 climbers have died on its slopes. For decades, the wall was a place of slow, public tragedy, with binoculars trained from the valley floor as attempts played out in real time. Today, a new kind of climber moves across these faces. Armed with ultralight gear and real-time weather data, speed soloists like Whaley Steck and Danny Arnold have raced up the Eiger in under 2 hours, times that would have seemed impossible a generation ago. Steck's 2008 solo clocked in at 2 hours 47 minutes. Arnold's 2021 record stands at 1 hour 58 minutes. Their style is minimalist, no fixed ropes, no siege tactics, just skill and speed. But these rapid ascents have stirred debate. Traditionalists argue that technology and preparation have dulled the wall's raw danger, while purists insist that nothing can erase the risk. The shadow of every lost climber lingers, shaping the ethics and choices of those who follow. The mountains remember, even as the pace of ascent accelerates. Patagonia's granite towers have long forced climbers to confront not just the elements, but the ethics of ascent. On Cerro Torre, the debate over style eclipsed the summit itself. For years, Maestri's 1970 compressor bolts marked a shortcut and a controversy. In 2012, Hayden Kennedy and Jason Crook set out to erase that shortcut. They climbed the southeast ridge with minimal gear, stripping away old bolts as they went, refusing fixed ropes or siege tactics. Their single-push ascent became the first widely accepted clean climb of Cerro Torre, settling a decades-old dispute. Some called it vandalism, others a return to true alpinism. But the climb proved the mountain could be done by fair means, if only when Patagonia's weather relented. Since then, most teams have followed their lead, facing the mountain's wind and ice without artificial aid. The stakes shift at Great Trango Tower, where altitude amplifies every risk. The east face drops 1,340 meters in one sweep, its summit at 6,286 meters, deep in the death zone. In 1992, a Norwegian team spent 23 days on the wall, battered by storms and thin air. As days passed, altitude sickness crept in. Hallucinations, confusion, paranoia. One climber argued with voices only he could hear. The team rotated leaders, shared oxygen, and pushed through exhaustion. When they finally reached the top, survival had become the measure of success. On Great Trango, the true adversary is invisible. The mind unraveling as oxygen thins, the line between triumph and disaster drawn not just on the granite, but within each climber's head. Today, fewer than 100 climbers have ever stood atop faces like Mount Thor or Great Trango Tower. As remote walls become more accessible, their risks remain absolute. Gravity doesn't negotiate. The world's steepest frontiers still remind